Chosen one, God will fix your financial issues. You're gonna feel it. There are seasons in life when financial pressure stops being an abstract concern and becomes something you feel in your body, your sleep, your choices, and your sense of safety. It is not only about numbers, bills, or income. It is about the weight of uncertainty, the constant mental calculations, the quiet fear of not having enough room to breathe. When a message speaks about financial issues being fixed, it is not promising instant wealth or unrealistic outcomes. It is pointing toward a shift in stability, clarity, direction, and internal alignment that begins to change how resources, opportunities, and decisions thrive through your life. You are going to feel it first internally before you see it externally. Relief often arrives as calm before it shows up as circumstance. Stay with this message until the very end, because each layer builds on the one before it, and deeper understanding unfolds gradually. And write your warmest wishes in the comments, and include the number 144 as a conscious act of intention and energetic focus. This moment reflects a chapter where hope meets responsibility, where belief meets action, and where awareness begins to stabilize what has felt uncertain. This is the only place where wishes are mentioned, because from here forward, the focus moves fully into clarity, alignment, and grounded movement forward. Now, chosen one, press the hype button, like this video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and let's start. Financial strain does not only affect your bank account, it affects how you think, how you respond to opportunities, how you evaluate risk, and how much mental space you have available for growth. When pressure stays active for a long time, the nervous system adapts to survival mode. Decisions become reactive. Short-term relief becomes more tempting than long-term stability. Even good opportunities can feel threatening when the system is exhausted. A real shift begins when the nervous system starts to feel safety again, not through fantasy, but through clarity, structure, and improved self-governance. When something begins to fix financially, the first sign is not usually money arriving suddenly. The first sign is often mental relief. You start seeing options instead of dead ends. You regain patience instead of panic. You feel less rushed to make desperate decisions. This internal shift is crucial because it changes the quality of the choices you make. Better decisions compound into better outcomes over time. Another early signal is increased discernment. You begin noticing where money has been leaking through impulsive choices, emotional spending, or avoidance of responsibility. Not with shame, but with awareness. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates power. Power creates stability. This sequence matters more than any single financial event. You may also feel a renewed sense of responsibility that does not feel heavy, but clarifying. You become more intentional about how you use your time, energy, and resources. You recognize that financial health is not only about earning more, but also about managing wisely, choosing sustainably, and respecting your capacity. This maturity stabilizes progress. Relief can also show up as reduced fear around the future. You stop catastrophizing. You stop assuming the worst. You stop making decisions purely from anxiety. This emotional stabilization allows you to evaluate opportunities more clearly and respond with intelligence rather than urgency. Another shift that often occurs is improved consistency. Instead of sporadic bursts of effort followed by exhaustion, you develop steadier habits. You follow through more reliably. You organize priorities more clearly. Consistency creates predictability. Predictability builds trust within yourself. Self-trust improves execution. As clarity increases, You may notice that certain distractions lose their grip. You become less tempted by shortcuts, risky promises, or comparisons with others. You understand that sustainable growth rarely comes from dramatic moves. It comes from repeated aligned decisions. You may also experience a refinement of ambition. Instead of chasing quick fixes, you begin building stable foundations. You value durability over speed. You make choices that support long-term health rather than short-term relief. This shift protects you from repeating cycles of stress. Financial stability also affects self-respect. When you begin honoring your responsibilities more consistently, your confidence increases quietly. You trust yourself more. You rely less on external reassurance. This internal confidence supports better negotiation, clearer boundaries, and stronger follow-through. Another important development is how you relate to scarcity thinking. Scarcity narrows perception. It makes everything feel urgent and threatening. As internal safety grows, your perception widens. You notice creative options. You see collaboration instead of competition. You recognize opportunities that were invisible when fear dominated attention. You may also notice that your tolerance for financial chaos decreases. Disorganization feels uncomfortable. Avoidance feels unsustainable. You naturally move toward structure, planning, and clarity. This is not rigid control. It is healthy order. As emotional stability increases, stress responses soften. You sleep better, you think more clearly, you communicate more calmly. These physiological improvements indirectly support better financial outcomes because your decision quality improves. Another sign of improvement is patience returning. Not passive waiting, but grounded readiness. You stop rushing to fix everything immediately. You allow progress to unfold steadily. This patience reduces mistakes and preserves energy. You may also experience improved boundaries around giving, lending, or overextending. You learn to support others without destabilizing yourself. This balance protects your foundation. Clarity may also increase around what truly matters financially. You separate needs from noise. You prioritize essentials. You stop measuring worth through consumption or comparison. This simplification strengthens stability. As you become more grounded, you may attract or recognize better opportunities, not because of luck alone, but because you are prepared to evaluate and sustain them. Readiness matters as much as opportunity. Another subtle shift is improved trust in timing. You stop forcing outcomes. You cooperate with rhythm. You move when movement is supported and wait when clarity requires patience. This timing awareness prevents unnecessary setbacks. You may also notice increased discipline that feels supportive rather than restrictive. You choose habits that protect stability. You follow routines that simplify decision-making. Structure becomes a tool for freedom rather than limitation. Financial stability also improves emotional confidence. You feel safer making plans. You feel more open to growth. You feel less reactive in conversations. This emotional safety supports healthier relationships and clearer leadership. Another important element is self-honesty. You begin acknowledging patterns without denial. You correct mistakes without self-attack. This honesty accelerates learning and prevents repeated errors. You may also notice that your internal dialogue becomes calmer. Panic language softens. Catastrophic thinking decreases. You operate from realism rather than fear. This mental clarity improves financial reasoning, as reliability strengthens internally. External reliability often follows. People trust you more. Opportunities become more stable. Systems become more predictable. This is not magic. It is coherence expressing itself externally. You are going to feel the change before you fully see it. You will feel less pressure in your chest, less urgency in your thoughts, less fear in your planning, more steadiness in your actions, more confidence in your decisions. This feeling is not complacency. It is stabilization. Stabilization allows growth to happen without collapse. It allows resources to accumulate rather than leak. Financial repair is rarely instant, but it becomes inevitable when clarity, responsibility, patience, and consistency align. The nervous system must feel safe before prosperity can be sustained. When safety stabilizes internally, systems begin to reorganize externally. You may still face challenges, but your response will be different. You will not panic. You will not freeze. You will not self-sabotage. You will adjust, learn, and continue. This resilience is the foundation of lasting stability. As this first part settles, understand this. When financial issues begin to truly shift, you feel it first as internal relief, clarity, and grounded confidence. That internal shift reorganizes your choices, your habits, and your opportunities steadily over time. What changes is not only what you have, but how you manage, protect, and grow what you receive. And from that grounded place, real financial stability becomes sustainable rather than fragile. As this internal relief continues to stabilize, the next layer of change begins to show up in how you make everyday decisions. You become less reactive and more deliberate. Instead of choosing based on fear, pressure, or short-term relief, you begin choosing based on sustainability and clarity. This may sound simple, but it represents a major shift in how your nervous system operates. When the body no longer feels constantly threatened, the mind can finally think long-term. Long-term thinking is one of the strongest foundations of financial stability. You may notice that your tolerance for impulsive choices decreases. Purchases, commitments, or financial risks that once felt tempting now feel unnecessary or even draining. This is not restriction. It is discernment. You are learning to distinguish between what provides momentary comfort and what actually supports your future. This distinction protects your resources and strengthens your sense of control over your own life. Another important change is how you experience responsibility. Responsibility no longer feels like punishment or pressure. It begins to feel empowering. You recognize that your choices matter and that you have the capacity to influence your trajectory. This awareness increases engagement rather than avoidance. You start addressing small issues before they grow into larger ones. This proactive behavior prevents unnecessary stress and builds confidence. As clarity improves, you may also become more honest with yourself about patterns that previously kept you stuck. This honesty does not come with shame. It comes with curiosity and accountability. You observe where habits, timing, or emotional reactions created instability in the past. You adjust rather than judge. This adaptive mindset accelerates learning and prevents repetition of the same cycles. You may also notice that your relationship with effort changes. You stop overworking in bursts followed by burnout. You move toward consistent, manageable effort. Consistency compounds. Small aligned actions done repeatedly create stability far more reliably than dramatic short-term pushes. This rhythm protects your energy and supports sustainable progress. Another shift occurs in how you manage uncertainty. Financial uncertainty used to trigger anxiety, urgency, or avoidance. As internal stability grows, uncertainty becomes something you can tolerate without panic. You gather information calmly. You evaluate options without rushing. You make decisions with more patience and less emotional interference. This reduces costly mistakes and increases strategic thinking. You may also experience improved organization. Not necessarily through rigid systems, but through natural order emerging. You keep better track of responsibilities. You plan with more intention. You reduce clutter, both mentally and practically. Organization reduces friction. Less friction conserves energy. Your sense of timing may also refine. You become more aware of when to act and when to wait. You stop forcing outcomes prematurely. You learn to allow conditions to mature before committing resources. This timing sensitivity prevents unnecessary losses and increases efficiency. Another important development is how you relate to external pressure. You stop comparing your financial pace to others. You recognize that your path has its own rhythm. This independence reduces unnecessary stress and protects self-trust. Comparison often pushes people into decisions that do not match their actual capacity or priorities. You may also notice that your emotional relationship with money softens. Money becomes less charged emotionally and more practical. You stop attaching your worth to numbers or outcomes. You treat money as a tool rather than a source of identity. This emotional neutrality improves decision quality and reduces impulsivity. As internal steadiness increases, communication around money often improves as well. You speak more clearly about expectations, boundaries, and responsibilities. You avoid vague agreements that create confusion later. Clear communication prevents misunderstandings and supports cooperation. Another shift that may occur is increased willingness to learn. You become curious about improving skills, understanding systems, or refining strategies rather than avoiding financial topics out of discomfort. This openness expands competence and confidence. You may also notice that your capacity to delay gratification improves. You become more comfortable investing in long-term benefit rather than seeking immediate relief. This patience strengthens financial foundations and reduces reactive spending patterns. As stability builds, your stress responses soften. Sleep improves. Focus improves. Emotional regulation improves. These physiological improvements indirectly support better financial performance because your cognitive resources become more available. You may also notice that your sense of agency increases. You stop feeling trapped by circumstances. You recognize where you can influence outcomes and where acceptance is appropriate. This realistic agency reduces helplessness and increases constructive action. Another important change is how you recover from setbacks. Instead of spiraling into discouragement or panic, you stabilize faster. You analyze what happened, adjust strategy, and continue. This resilience is essential for long-term financial health. You may also experience increased clarity around what truly matters to you financially. You align spending, saving, and effort with values rather than impulse or social pressure. This alignment creates meaning as well as stability. As your internal structure strengthens, you may attract or recognize better opportunities, not because of luck alone, but because you are prepared to evaluate and sustain them responsibly. Readiness amplifies opportunity. You may also notice that trust in yourself increases. You follow through more consistently. You keep commitments more reliably. This self-trust reduces internal conflict and improves confidence in planning. Another quiet shift is reduced mental noise around money. Obsessive worrying decreases, catastrophic thinking softens. You operate from grounded realism rather than fear. This clarity improves judgment. You may also become more comfortable with gradual progress. You stop expecting immediate transformation. You respect the compounding nature of consistency. This patience protects motivation and prevents disappointment. As this stabilization continues, financial improvement stops feeling like something you are chasing and starts feeling like something you are building. Building requires patience, structure, and care. It also requires forgiveness for past mistakes and commitment to present responsibility. You may still face challenges, but your response will continue to mature. You will be less reactive, more thoughtful, and more resilient. This change in response is often more valuable than any single financial gain. You are learning that stability is not created by one event, one opportunity, or one decision. It is created by alignment practiced repeatedly. Each aligned choice strengthens the foundation. As this second part settles, understand that the feeling of financial change is the nervous system regaining safety and clarity. That safety reshapes how you think, choose, and act. Over time, those changes compound into tangible stability, opportunity, and confidence. The process is steady, not rushed, and that is exactly why it lasts. As this steady rebuilding continues, you may begin to notice a deeper change in how you relate to control and trust. Financial stress often trains the nervous system to over-control, to monitor every detail with tension, or to swing between hypervigilance and avoidance. As stability starts to return internally, this pattern softens. You no longer feel the same need to grip tightly or escape responsibility. You begin operating from informed trust in your judgment, in your ability to adapt, and in the systems you are creating. This trust does not make you careless. It makes you calm. Calm allows better perception. You notice opportunities sooner. You evaluate risks more accurately. You are not driven by panic or desperation, which often distort decision-making. Instead, you respond from clarity. This alone can change the trajectory of financial outcomes over time. Another important shift happens in how you interpret effort and reward. You stop expecting every action to deliver immediate results. You begin respecting the compounding effect of small, consistent choices, saving a little, organizing a little, learning a little, improving a habit a little. These actions no longer feel insignificant. You recognize that stability is built through accumulation rather than breakthroughs. This perspective removes pressure and supports consistency. You may also notice that your sense of discipline becomes more supportive and less punishing. You are not forcing yourself through fear or guilt. You are choosing structure because it protects your peace and future capacity. Routines become stabilizing rather than restrictive. They simplify decisions and reduce mental load. This efficiency preserves energy for higher-level thinking and planning. As your internal clarity deepens, your relationship with risk also matures. You stop avoiding risk entirely out of fear, and you stop chasing it out of desperation. You begin evaluating risk realistically. You consider long-term impact, sustainability, and alignment with your values. This balanced approach protects you from impulsive losses while still allowing growth. Another quiet development is how you experience security. Security stops being something you wait for externally and starts becoming something you cultivate internally. You feel safer making plans. You feel steadier handling unexpected expenses or changes. This sense of internal security reduces emotional volatility and supports more rational financial behavior. You may also notice improved communication around financial matters. You express needs, boundaries, and expectations more clearly. You avoid vague agreements that create confusion later. You become more comfortable having practical conversations rather than avoiding them due to discomfort or shame. Clear communication reduces hidden stress and strengthens cooperation. As your nervous system stabilizes, cognitive clarity improves. You think more logically and less catastrophically. You evaluate information without excessive emotional distortion. This clarity improves budgeting, planning, negotiation, and problem-solving. Your mind becomes an asset rather than a source of anxiety. Another change may appear in how you relate to consumption. You become more mindful about what you buy, why you buy it, and how it actually serves your life. You stop using spending as emotional regulation. Instead, you use spending intentionally. This shift alone can dramatically improve financial stability over time. You may also feel less pressure to impress, compare, or keep up with others financially. You recognize that external appearances often hide internal instability. You choose alignment over image. This independence protects your financial decisions from social pressure and unnecessary debt or stress. Your patience continues to deepen. You no longer rush results or expect immediate transformation. You respect timing and process. This patience allows you to make fewer reactive mistakes and more strategic choices. It also protects motivation because you stop measuring success only through short-term outcomes. Another important shift is how you handle setbacks or unexpected expenses. Instead of spiraling into fear or self-criticism, you stabilize more quickly. You assess the situation, adjust your plan, and continue. This resilience prevents setbacks from turning into long-term derailment. You may also notice increased curiosity around improving your financial intelligence. You may seek knowledge, tools, or skills that increase competence. This curiosity comes from empowerment rather than fear. Learning becomes proactive rather than reactive. As clarity strengthens, you may refine your long-term vision. You begin thinking in terms of sustainability rather than survival. You imagine stability, growth, and flexibility rather than simply avoiding crisis. This shift changes how you allocate time, energy, and resources. Another subtle development is improved emotional neutrality around money. Money becomes less charged with fear, guilt, or identity. It becomes a practical tool rather than a source of self-worth. This neutrality supports better judgment and reduces impulsive behavior. You may also become more comfortable with delayed gratification. You choose long-term benefit over short-term relief. This ability strengthens savings, investment decisions, and overall stability. It also builds self-trust because you follow through on future-oriented commitments. Your sense of agency continues to strengthen. You recognize where your choices genuinely influence outcomes and where acceptance is appropriate. This realistic agency reduces helplessness and increases constructive action. You may notice that your mental space feels less crowded. Worry loops decrease. Obsessive financial anxiety softens. You have more cognitive bandwidth available for creativity, learning, and strategic thinking. This mental freedom is a major sign of internal stabilization. Another development is how you relate to generosity and boundaries. You learn to support others without compromising your own stability. You give intentionally rather than impulsively or out of guilt. This balance protects both your resources and your relationships. As alignment continues, you may feel more grounded in your identity. You no longer define yourself by financial struggle or scarcity narratives. You begin identifying as someone who is capable, responsible, and adaptable. Identity shifts shape behavior powerfully over time. You may also notice that planning becomes more realistic and less emotionally driven. You set goals that are achievable and structured. You break large goals into manageable steps. This practicality increases follow-through and reduces overwhelm. Another important change is increased tolerance for gradual improvement. You stop expecting dramatic overnight change. You value steady progress. This mindset prevents discouragement and supports persistence. As internal order strengthens, external systems often begin to stabilize as well. Bills become more organized. Cash flow becomes more predictable. Opportunities become easier to recognize and manage. This is not coincidence. It is coherence expressing itself externally. You are beginning to experience financial stability as something you actively participate in rather than something that happens to you. This sense of participation increases empowerment and reduces fear. You may still face uncertainty at times, but your response will continue to mature. You will remain calmer, more strategic, and more resilient. These qualities compound into long-term stability. As this third part settles, recognize that real financial healing is not only about money increasing, it is about nervous system safety, cognitive clarity, disciplined consistency, and aligned decision-making. When these elements stabilize, financial improvement becomes sustainable rather than fragile. What you are building now is not just relief, it is durability. As durability continues to strengthen, another layer of change begins to emerge. A healthier relationship with power, responsibility, and choice. When financial stress dominated, many decisions may have felt forced, reactive, or limited. You may have felt like circumstances were driving you rather than you participating consciously. As internal stability grows, that dynamic reverses. You begin to experience yourself as an active participant in shaping your financial life rather than a passive responder to pressure. This shift shows up in subtle but important ways. You take more ownership of your decisions without harsh self-blame. You recognize where you can influence outcomes and where patience or acceptance is more appropriate. This realistic sense of agency prevents both helplessness and over-control. You are no longer swinging between anxiety and avoidance. You are operating from grounded responsibility. You may notice that your standards continue to rise gently but firmly. You become less tolerant of disorganization, vague planning, or habitual procrastination. Not because you are becoming rigid, but because clarity feels better than chaos. Order reduces friction. When systems are organized, your mind feels calmer, and your energy becomes more available for growth instead of constant maintenance. Another meaningful development is how you relate to effort. Effort becomes more strategic and less emotional. You stop working harder just to feel productive. You begin working smarter, choosing actions that create leverage and long-term benefit rather than short-lived relief. This efficiency conserves energy and increases confidence in your direction. Your relationship with planning also matures. Planning no longer feels overwhelming or restrictive. It becomes supportive. You think in layers rather than extremes. Short-term needs are balanced with long-term goals. This layered thinking reduces anxiety and prevents impulsive decisions driven by immediate pressure. You may also notice improved emotional boundaries around money conversations and responsibilities. You become more comfortable discussing expectations clearly and calmly. You stop carrying other people's financial stress unnecessarily. This emotional separation protects your nervous system and prevents hidden resentment or overextension. Another shift appears in how you evaluate opportunities. Instead of reacting to excitement, fear, or comparison, you assess alignment. You consider sustainability, risk, timing, and personal capacity. This discernment protects you from impulsive commitments that drain resources or destabilize progress. As your nervous system continues to feel safer, creativity often expands. You may find yourself generating ideas, solutions, or new approaches more naturally. When the mind is not trapped in survival mode, it can explore, innovate, and adapt. Creativity becomes a practical asset rather than a luxury. And through this steadiness, imagination becomes an ally in building sustainable solutions.